SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
It's earnings season, and today on iGaming Daily, we've got a powerhouse in the hot seat as we break down the Q4 and year-ending earnings call from Flutter, which generated $162 million in profit, but faced some tough questions from analysts on whether its U.S. returns are sustainable. And in the back half of the show, we'll shift from wins to losses and talk a little bit about DraftKings ponying up $10 million to settle its NFT drama. I'm Jessica Welman, editor of SBC Americas. Welcome to iGaming Daily, brought to you by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. And joining me today, we're changing it up. I've got the payment expert and insider sport editor, Ted Orme-Claye, fresh back from Rio. I hope you had a great time in Brazil, and that you're ready to chat it up with me as we change things up today.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Good to be here. Good to speak about some more betting orientated news. As you said, I've been on the payment side of things for quite a while now, so it's not very often that I get to check out some of the stuff with some of the bigger public companies in the betting side of things, which there's always some interesting goings on there. And it's an interesting change of pace to being back in Manchester, of all places, after being in Rio de Janeiro for a week, which was, a great trip there. The conference was really good. A lot of very interesting talking points there. As expected, I was mainly on the payment side of things, but did manage to check out some of the speeches from the regulators and Ministry of Finance representatives and some of the leading betting companies as well. I'll do a bit of shameless shilling. I've put an article out on SBC News for Ted Orme-Claye earlier covering one of the leadership panels, which had a few interesting comments on from some of the big operators. Yeah, overall it was a solid event, and Rio is probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to, I've got to say. I was about to do what I hate, because I've chastised people before and ask about the weather, and I'm just going to say, I bet going from Manchester to Rio, it was ungodly hot for you, and then I'm moving on. We're not going into a weather conversation. You're very correct, but let's move swiftly on. Yeah. All right. So, don't worry. I'm going to make you talk money and numbers this entire time so that you will feel right at home. Flutter did its year-ending earnings today. If you want all of the top line numbers, I'm just going to be honest. You need to go read Ted Orme-Claye on SBC News. He does great recaps that focus on the financials of that. I will fully admit that is not my strong suit. So, kind of top line number though, $162 million in profit. They are, they're growing. They're EBITDA positive. To me, I hear Flutter and my brain just immediately translates it to FanDuel. I'm curious for you, Ted, that was not the case a few years ago. So how much, when you were just kind of looking down and seeing the balance sheet and kind of the narratives, how much has things changed since you were, first starting in the business? It's very interesting and I think very telling to look at Flutter's results, and you really see how much the international industry has kind of transformed, I think, and how much of a massive role the United States now plays as such a dominant market. How many states are active now? Is it 36 or 38? It's 37 plus DC, I believe. Oh, and right. Hawaii's House passed sports betting yesterday. I don't know if it's getting through the Senate, but who knows? If we can get Hawaii on board, I think that's a big domino to fall that we never expected. Yeah. So with the addition of Hawaii, then it'd be close to 40. So I think, and the US is obviously the world's largest economy. It's got a population of 300 million people, in excess of 300 million people. Sorry. Four major sports leagues plus the MLS are five of the most valuable leagues in the world. They're in the top 10. There's huge sports consumption. So of course the market has emerged as being the most valuable in the world. And we're seeing that very clearly in Flutter Entertainment's results. I think it's very interesting. As you said, Flutter now, and especially in America, you'll immediately make that association with FanDuel, and that, looking at the results, you can see why. But for a lot of the UK and European industry, the thing that you would historically associate Flutter with would be Paddy Power and Betfair. Obviously, the company has Irish origins, because it's the first sort of company. The oldest one we've got here is Paddy Power, And Flutter's origins are really with when Paddy Power merged with the British company Betfair, and then you had obviously the acquisition of the Stars Group, didn't you? And it's gradually just snowballed into now owning FanDuel, the legacy daily fantasy sports platform, which made that leap into betting. And that is now by far its biggest earner, even though, of course, Paddy Power and Betfair and all these other brands are still incredibly strong brands and bring about a lot of money. I mean, if we looked at the results, what was it? Was it revenue of 300 million from UK and Irish activity, which is a significant amount, but it's very rare. It's very interesting to see that the 300 million, which is already a vast sum, is one of the more insignificant numbers here in comparison to billions for FanDuel in terms of revenue. So it's very interesting to see how this company has morphed from being a sort of Irish British company, already a very dominant player, to now being incredibly US focused. And obviously that's also seen in its listing as well, isn't it? It quite very famously left the London Stock Exchange for the New York Stock Exchange, and what I think was actually quite a big blow for the British stock market and the public listings in this country, especially at a time when the government were trying to keep as much investment here as possible. So yeah, I think the results and the results are very indicative of Flutter's journey and quite significant transformation over the recent years, and also indicative of how significant the US betting market now is for these international companies.
Yeah, I mean, reading through the transcript this morning, I was struck that they were saying, like, you know, we have the US stuff, and then we're going to make basically reorg into this international division that's the rest of the world, basically. You know,
Yeah.
It's not like they're very clear that the US is their home base. What was also interesting in this transcript was, so they did their projections for 2025, and the analysts on the Q&A, they're never going to be like, I don't think you're right. But they pretty much got as close to, I don't think you're right, as I've seen, where they were pointing out, like, handle growth is slowing down in the US. We'll get Missouri. We'll go to Canadian gaming business eventually, and Tom Nightingale will have kind of all of the Canadian highlights from these earnings calls. They said they don't think they're getting Alberta until Q1 26, when the original thought was Q3 25. And they're like, you know, handle's slowing. How can you possibly sustain this growth if the industry as a whole isn't necessarily growing? And the FanDuel executives did kind of push back. They did point out, and this is true, a lot of promotional spend, because it's tax deductible in certain states, operators will go big on it, and that artificially inflates handle because you get to write off promo cred. So you're essentially just creating dollars that never really existed in terms of growth. They were kind of like, oh, I don't know, I don't think handle's that big a deal. And I was just like, for being a sportsbook operator, as FanDuel is, handle's a bit of a deal, especially when the entire success of FanDuel has been high hold products, which is making sure that you generate a lot of handle and then hold on to a lot of it, which is why it is kind of interesting. They are continuing to roll out high hold products. They did. I know you don't follow the NFL, Ted, but did you hear about kind of the third and fourth quarter of last year were just disastrous for sports books when it came to football betting?
Yeah, I saw that coming through in some of the results I saw, and I think it was mentioned in a lot of the affiliate reports as well, I think, wasn't it, of impacting that space quite significantly. Although, yeah, you might need to give me a bit of an idea of how exactly this occurred.
I mean, I believe the words unprecedented and catastrophic were thrown around in these updates. It was a very volatile swing in the favor of, well, I mean, it was great for bettors. Everybody's raking it in. Volatile swing for operators. And I think some people, including myself, are just kind of like, well, if you're going to live and die by high hold same game parlays, and all of the favorites come in and you parlay them together, like, is this necessarily a strategy you want to continue pursuing because you kind of create the potential for this to happen? In the earnings call, they said, this is just the nature of the business. We still believe in high hold products. And they talk quite a bit about the Your Way product on FanDuel, where I haven't seen it myself and they kind of soft rolled it out. So there's not a ton of information about it. But essentially, it allows you to build same game parlays and have manipulatable. God, that's a weird, hard word to say. I've never had to say that before. Lines where you can, customize it even further, to keep people in these high hold bets and continue to keep those margins. Talking with Martin Elliott, he said that the super sub product, Paddy Power, has been one that has really been great for customer acquisition and retention. Have you used it at all? Are you familiar with it?
I'll admit I've not used it, but I am familiar with it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and I think Paddy Power has always been one of the big leaders in the UK. I guess we'll call them bet builders or same game hackers. They've always been one of the big leaders in that space, been pushing that product quite strongly, have acquired a lot of customers, and I think as a result of that, obviously made a lot of money from that product. And we now obviously see a similar kind of product in the US with, as you call them, same game parlays. It's obviously same product, different terminology, really. And these betting products are always going to prove popular with people because of the sheer amount of options there are, the entertainment value of being able to have different options in different markets in one game to make viewing a fixture more exciting, to diversify your ways of getting a win. And then this sub product has given people a way to get around one of the biggest kind of frustration points I think customers will have with one of these products, which is, if your player gets injured or gets sent off or doesn't play if you've put it on before the lineups are announced, that you can get a replacement, a shoe-in for it, and keep your bet rolling and stay engaged. So I think it makes a lot of sense that they'll be interested in taking this out to the US market and introducing it to more customers there, especially given how popular same game parlays have proven with the US better in the same way they have with the UK and Irish and wider European better.
Yeah, to clarify, super sub is soccer only, but I think the idea that they carried over is how can we entice people who maybe are nervous to play accumulators or parlays into playing more, and that's kind of where Your Way is coming from.
Yeah, by in a way, sort of adding another layer of insurance to the bet, I guess.
Exactly. All right. Like I said, if you want the full financial report, go to SBC News for that one. We're going to take a quick break and come back to make Ted talk about crypto because I don't want to do it by myself.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
All right. Welcome back to iGaming Daily. Last week, there was news that DraftKings settled one of its many, many lawsuits that I have been tracking. This one, the rather substantial class action lawsuit against them for their now closed NFT marketplace and their DFS product with NFTs called Rainmakers. For people unfamiliar with the case, the motion to dismiss the case was denied. For those who don't watch a lot of Law and Order or follow courts like I do, that's usually a sign that the defense or the plaintiff has a pretty strong case. It was going to be moving forward. It also tricks discovery, which means that you can petition all of these different things from a company. So DraftKings had a lot of reasons why they wanted to settle this and just get it out of the way. They settled for $10 million. It sounds like a lot of money, Ted. How big is $10 million really, though, when you have potentially 175,000 people who are going to get a piece of it?
Yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, probably not really that significant. And I think as well, if you consider wider consequences potentially of this lawsuit, that the allegations that the NFT marketplace was violating regulatory standards in the US with how digital assets are governed and classified, that could have gone a lot further than just a $10 million settlement. Worst case scenario, this could have led to some quite significant enforcement action, really. So when you consider those two things in general, it's, I guess, it's it really, the conclusion I've come to is DraftKings have kind of put this issue to bed. At fair enough, what, 10 million is a lot, but yeah, it's been put away. But yeah,
it's a drop in the bucket comparatively.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking like, I feel bad. I have a friend who I play poker with he will qualify for this class action lawsuit. And when I told him, I was like, I don't know how they're divvying it up, but there's a chance that if they just give everybody the same, you get $57. So it's not a lot of money. And like you said, this had a lot of regulatory scrutiny around it. Again, they were selling NFTs of athletes, and there was a separate lawsuit that they ended up coming to an agreement with the NFL Players Association related to the licensing of these things, because they just shut it down and are like, we're not paying you anymore. So I think they probably paid a lot of money for that to go away too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd argue, sorry to interrupt you, yes, that was probably that was probably the more significant one as well, right? The players lawsuit, the athletes lawsuit. Would that not have been?
I mean, in terms of like final judgments, maybe. I think really the big thing is, again, so discovery, being able to get inside the inner workings of DraftKings and this product and petition. We're talking tens of thousands of pieces of evidence, emails, documents, implementation, that sort of thing. And you are also a business that runs like highly, highly regulated and licensed sports books and casinos across the country and potentially the world as they get to expand. You do not want someone poking around in the unregulated thing that you were doing. And you will, again, blanket, I am not a lawyer, but I think for me, what sticks out is you don't want that evidence getting out there and becoming part of the public domain, and having people like me troll the court sites and find it.
I guess the other thing to consider might as well be DraftKings is what is the second biggest sportsbook in the US by market share and revenue. So 10 million to settle this, put this issue behind them, and as you say, prevent any further potentially quite disastrous investigations and enforcement actions. It's not exactly a bad thing for them, is it?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I mean, it kind of raises the question too. This was the most interesting thing about the whole Rainmaker thing was just seeing someone that regulated get into kind of the crypto space in some respect. I wonder, on the DraftKings earnings call, Jason Robbins mentioned event contracts, the prediction markets, election betting, as people have called it, are something that they're potentially looking into. We've seen Crypto.com get into event contracts with crypto, and CFTC hasn't intervened. Have they intervened? Sorry, There was a period where I read like 50 of these. Do you remember? They didn't, right?
Yeah, I think they did. And they did Crypto.com launched that product shortly before Christmas, I think. And not long after that, the CFTC requested that they take it down. I don't know whether they have done, though.
Yeah, I don't think they did, though.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of, nothing's really come about from it. I do know, though, that Robinhood launched, it was Robinhood, wasn't it? They launched their own sports, events contract
that did
product.
Get taken down, though.
Yeah, which was more to do with politics, I think, than sport. And yeah, that they were told to remove that within a day of it being launched, I think, which they said they were quite disappointed with because they claimed that they'd been engaged in a lot of discussions with the CFTC ahead of this. So it's still a very regulatory contentious topic, I think, this whole notion of political event contracts. I mean, it's interesting, I think, coming from, might be going on a bit of a tangent here, but, coming from the UK, I know we've had this conversation before, but political betting in the UK, you could just go on, say we were talking about Flutter earlier, I could just go on the Paddy Power website and put a bet on who's going to be the next Prime Minister of the UK or the next President of the US, or, some might have like chances of Donald Trump to be impeached within the next 4 years, something like that. You can have fun to all sorts of political markets in Britain, but as we said, in America, it's very close. It's not allowed, is it? The way that you do it is through these event contracts, which isn't really classified as a form of betting.
Well, and the event contracts, I mean, the market for elections used to be very restricted. Like the CFTC basically just said, like these, like 2 small organizations, one of which was a school, like for educational and research purposes could do it. And then Kalshi just kind of ran with it. It didn't used to be a big thing. Yeah, we don't do a lot of what you guys do. Most states, we were talking before we recorded, betting on the Oscars is something I enjoy doing, but I have to drive, like 20 minutes to Indiana to do it because you can't do it in Kentucky and you can't do it in Ohio, which I live just across the river from. So yeah, it's something that we can't do, but I think Flutter said something about they're looking kind of R&D into event contracts, DraftKings as well. I think with Donald Trump and the new CFTC and this upcoming roundtable on event contracts, they're looking and seeing if this maybe opens the door for a lot more alternative markets that they could potentially offer. Like FanDuel in Canada offers all sorts of crazy stuff. Like, will it rain? I mean, just stuff like that. And so I think they would love to be able to expand that here, whether it be through event contracts. So we shall see. All right. We are entirely out of time, which is surprising because I did not think I had this much to say about crypto and earnings calls, but you brought out the best in me, Ted. Thanks for joining me. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time on iGaming Daily.
Thanks very much, Jess.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.